Hello everyone, this is Hidayat Shahid. I am your lab instructor for ENGR1025U. In this video, I will complete the assembly for your LAB3A. Before I start, the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at for the LAB3 small cabinet assembly. I need a couple of parts from the LAB2 which are associated with the hinge. There are two parts with the hinges, and there are two pins. One is the hinge pin, one is the fastener pin. So the first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy those four parts from the lab 2 to um, lab 3 folder. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just basically pasting them in here. So now I have that. I'm going to close the lab 2 folder. And now I'm going to change the name of these parts that I have just copied. Because one of the parts I will be making some changes, or you will be making some changes depending on if you want to make the change to the fastener pin length or the door. But I will be making change to my door holes on the door for the small cabinet, which I will do it in the assembly. There is a reason that this lab is I have set up like that, so that you will see that if you make changes to your part models in the assembly, it can be automatically it changes the part inside your original part in the working folder. So first thing first, I'm going to change the name. All I'm doing is just changing lab 2 to lab 3 so that these parts are no longer linked. So now I have changed these parts, and now I'm going to start the assembly. To start, I'm basically sorry about that. I'm going to go to SolidWorks. In here, I'm going to open a new document, and I'm going to open the assembly. And the first thing that what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this assembly with, I'm going to create a subassembly for the hinge parts. And then I'm going to use that subassembly in the big assembly that I'm going to do it for the small cabinet. To start, I'm just going to bring in hinge A, for example. And I'm just going to move this out of the way. And I'm going to set the units to mmgs. I'm going to save this file as I'm going to call it your student ID lab 3 hinge sub assembly. So that's my first part. This is fixed because it's the first part, as we have mentioned in your lab 2, that the first part you bring in, it brings it as a fixed part. The next part I'm going to bring in is insert component, and I'm going to select the hinge B. My name of these parts may be slightly different than the lab manual, but I am just working with the shapes, so I'm bringing in the right parts. And I'm going to bring in another component, which is hinge pen. So I'm just going to drop it there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this part by right clicking on it. And I'm going to float by right clicking on it this part. So now my pen is fixed, but my other parts are okay to move. So now I'm just basically going to rotate this component. I'm going to reorient in a way so that I can start doing the mating relationships. So the first mating relationship that I'm going to add is I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to make them concentric, and I'm okay with that. And I'm going to slide this out and I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna make them coincident. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna select this face. I'm gonna make them um, concentric, and I'm just gonna move this, slide it out, and I'm gonna add the next mate is this face, and I'm gonna select this face, and by clicking on it I'm gonna click OK. So now my subassembly is complete, and I'm gonna basically add, as you can see, I can move both sides. So I'm gonna leave this assembly right there, and now I'm gonna open a new assembly document, which is basically I'm gonna click on new, and I'm gonna start a new assembly. That's where I'm gonna assemble the cabinet shell and the shelf and so on and so forth, and I will bring in this hinge subassembly there. So the first component that I'm gonna bring it in is I'm gonna basically browse for it. I'm gonna bring in the small cabinet shell, and I'm gonna bring it in here, and I'm gonna rotate it right there, and I'm gonna drop it there. So that's cabinet shell. I'm gonna set following the lab naming conventions, and also the units. I'm gonna set the units as mmgs, and I'm gonna save this assembly as, I'm just gonna select that. I'm gonna just modify the name there, and this will be small cabinet assembly, and your student ID lab3 small cabinet assembly. So I'm just gonna save this, and now I'm gonna bring in the other components in this to make the assembly. So the first part that I'm gonna bring in is those supports for the shelf, and I'm gonna bring that component in, and I have it here. So this one, I'm bringing it in here, and I'm gonna zoom in. So this part I'm gonna use it to support the shelf. I'm gonna insert it in these holes, and I'm gonna copy along here and on the other side too, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do it. So the first thing first, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this face and this top face by clicking on mate, and I'm gonna select this face. I'm gonna make them parallel, so this will maintain the parallel relationship between the two. And now I'm gonna select this cylindrical face, and I'm gonna select this hole in there, and I'm gonna make them concentric, so it's gonna line it up. And now I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna add the coincident mate with this face. So that's done. Now I could do is I could copy this one with a copy with mate over there, or I am going to show you how to do a linear pattern for components, which will copy the mates as well. To do that, it's similar process as what we did in the feature uh, copying or sketch copying in lab 2. In the assembly, it's called linear component pattern. So you click on that, and you do is you specify the direction, which I'm going to select this direction, and this arrow is pointing outwards. I need it on the opposite direction, so I'm going to click on it. I could have just clicked on here as well to change the direction. So I know the distance between these two holes is 250, so I'm just going to set this as 250, and I need 2. And the second direction, I'm gonna go along this direction, and again the arrow is pointing downwards. I'm gonna change it by clicking on the other side. The vector now is pointing the other way. I'm gonna add 2 in there, and the distance between these two holes is 50 millimeters, so I'm gonna add it in the third one, so I'm gonna put 150 there. And under component to patterns, components to pattern, that's where I'm gonna select this component. As soon as I select it, the components are there, and I'm gonna click OK. So linear pattern is there. Now I'm gonna copy them on the other side. So I'm gonna use mirror feature, mirror pattern, and I'm gonna go to under by clicking on this arrow. I'm gonna go to mirror components, and I have already selected these components, which was the linear pattern, and I need to specify a plane about which I'm gonna mirror. So I need a plane right in the middle. I know when I created my shell, I had my there was a right plane was in the middle, so I'm gonna select that, and I'm gonna click OK. So as you can see, it has added the components there, which are not the way I want. I'm basically gonna add it because my plane is not right at the center. That's why those are not at the right point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna modify my shell right here, so that I get it right. You can copy them manually if you prefer, but I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna insert a plane there. If I'm gonna check if I can find some reference geometry there. There we go. We have this reference geometry, and I'm gonna select plane, and I'm gonna select this plane as my first reference, and then this plane I'm gonna get my second reference, so it's putting the plane right in the middle. I'm gonna click OK, and so this is the plane that I'm gonna go and modify. But to do the pattern, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete this, and now I'm gonna do the pattern, and I'm gonna go back to the mirror component tool, and now I'm gonna select my plane. I'm gonna expand this. This is the plane I am selecting, and the components to pattern, I'm gonna select this. And now if I click OK, so as you can see, now it is patterned properly. All right, so this is done. So there's something new you have learned by watching this video. Now I'm gonna bring in the shelf. Before I do that, I'm gonna save this document, and now I'm gonna go insert component. I'm gonna browse to my LAB3 folder, and from there I'm bringing in the cabinet um, shelf. So I have it here, and now for this one the process is I'm going to add some constraints. I'm going to select mate, I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to make it coincident, and I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to make them coincident. The next I'm gonna add is I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna make them coincident as well. So the shelf is there. Now I could copy with the mates up there, or I could basically I'm just gonna do a linear pattern because it's faster in my opinion for this thing. So direction, I'm gonna specify this direction. I'm gonna switch the direction pointing upwards. And the distance here I'm going to specify 150, and I'm gonna component to pattern, I'm gonna select this, and I'm gonna right click OK. So now this is added. Again, I'm gonna save my file, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring in the subassembly for the hinge that I have just created. To do that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on insert component, and it is showing my hinge subassembly there. So I'm just gonna select it. I'm gonna drag it there. If it's not showing there, in your case, you can always go and bring it from your uh, folder. So I'm gonna just rotate this like that, and now I'm gonna start doing the assembly. I wanna have this hinge to be mounted there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a mating relationship. I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna zoom in into this face, and I'm gonna make them concentric. And I'm gonna just move this a little bit out so I can see it better. I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna select the second hole by zooming in, and I'm gonna make them concentric. And the last mate that I'm gonna add is I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna make it coincident. So now this is added. Now what I can do is I can do linear pattern, or I can just copy with the mate. This one I'm just gonna copy with the mate. The subassembly, if I try to move it in here, it doesn't move, because whenever a SolidWorks you bring in a subassembly, by default, to save the computational time, it makes it brings it in as a rigid body, one body treats it. To make it functional, what you need to do is you need to make it flexible. And how you do it? In here in my feature manager, this is the subassembly that I brought it in. To make it flexible, all you gotta do is right click on it. In here, this icon there is will make it this assembly as flexible. So as soon as you do that, the F the this symbol indicates now your assembly is flexible. So now I'm going to try to move it so you can see that am I able to rotate it or not. As you can see, now I'm able to do it. So basically you need to make your sub-assemblies flexible. Always it depends on your design intent what you want to do. Sometimes you want it to be rigid because you don't want to be, whenever you open your assemblies, you don't want to waste too much time, because it adds to the computational power. Now I'm going to copy this, right click, I'm going to copy with the mates, and I'm going to click next. In here, like lab 2, I'm going to select this one as my first concentric mate, and this one as my second concentric mate, and this surface my coincident mate. I'm gonna click OK. So this is done, and now I'm just gonna check if I need to make this one flexible too. It already is making this one flexible. So on the other side, I'm gonna repeat the process. In this case, what I'm going to do is, because it's mirrored, I'm going to install the I'm going to use the mirror feature to copy this, and then I'm going to dissolve that subassembly so that I will be able to move it. So let me show you that way. If you are not comfortable doing that, you can always follow the basic technique and do the installation one by one. But I'm going to do it with the other way. So I'm going to select these two sub-assemblies. I'm going to do is mirror component. No, actually, I'm just going to copy one so that I don't have to repeat the process. So this is the one I'm going to mirror. So I'm going to do is go to linear pattern. I'm going to expand that, mirror component, and mirror about the plane. So I already know I have this plane one in the middle, so I'm going to select that, and I'm going to click OK. So this assembly is there. Now what happens if I move this? It's already it's fine. In this case, it hasn't done anything, so I don't need to make any changes, so they are independent. And now what I will do is I will just modify this. I'm just gonna select this subassembly too. So now I have these hinges are installed on each side and they're fully independent from each other. If it wasn't independent, then I will dissolve the subassembly and I will add the some of the relationships or the information so that they were independent. So I'm just gonna collapse this so that I can see my feature manager a bit better. So the next step, there is only two things are left. I need to bring in the door, and I need to install uh, the fastener pins there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install the fastener pen first, and I'm gonna do insert component. I'm gonna browse. I'm gonna locate the fastener pen. Again, I'm working in lab 3 folder. If you bring in from lab 2, then you can't move any files around. If you do, then the assembly won't work. Fastener pen, so I'm gonna bring it there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this face. I'm gonna select this face. Oops, mate, I needed to initiate that first. And I'm gonna select this one and concentric, and then this face and this face. It's basically coincident, and now it's done. Now I'm gonna copy with the mates this this pen along other locations wherever I need them. So I'm gonna do it in one step. So I'm gonna go to insert component, copy with mate. I'm gonna select this is the component I wanna copy. I'm gonna click on this next, and now I'm gonna specify where I need the relationship. So I need relationship here. I have selected this, so this is done. I'm gonna click OK. I am gonna continue with this dialog box, and I'm gonna continue to specify the next place where I wanna put that, and I'm gonna click there. OK, and I'm gonna select next hole, and I'm gonna click here. OK, and I'm gonna turn around, and now I'm gonna insert the pin on this side. The fastener pin, I'm gonna go insert copy with mates, and I'm gonna select this pin, and I'm gonna click next, and I'm gonna specify this one, and for coincident relationship I'm gonna specify this. I'm gonna click OK, and I'm gonna move to the next one and click here and click OK, and now I'm gonna install it on the upper hinge, and I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna select this face, click OK, and I'm gonna select this face, and then I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna click OK. So I'm done with this one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of this. So the last part that I need to add in there is the door. So now I'm gonna go insert component, and I'm gonna browse the door, small cabinet door, and I'm bringing it in here, and I'm gonna basically rotate it a bit. So that I can see the holes properly. So one thing that I know, the fastener pen that is installed and the hole size, this is not deep enough. So I'm gonna change the size of those holes in this assembly environment, and it will be saved down there. So this is the small cabinet door. I'm gonna expand it, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the where I had created those cuts. Basically, these are the cuts. I'm just gonna modify that, add it, and okay, I'm just gonna change it, and I'm gonna change this one to 50 millimeters, and I'm gonna get out of this edit mode. So now my holes are deeper, so I can just show you by just looking through. So now they're deeper than before. So now I can install the fastener pen without making change to that fastener pen. You could either change the fastener pen, but if you're changing the fastener pen, make sure you save it as under different name. Otherwise, it's gonna change the other ones too. So now I'm gonna start add the mates. So mating relationship, all I need is one mate here, and I can select this face and make it concentric. Okay, and then the next mate I can add is select this face and select this face and make it coincident. And I am not going to add any other mate there because for the purpose of the assembly it doesn't matter. I am just going to add one mate there, and hopefully everything will line up with this. I'm going to make them concentric, and since the upper one already have the incident mate, so it's fine. You should not add too many mates. Work with whatever justifies your design intent. I'm gonna click OK there, and I'm gonna try to move this cabinet in and out. It works fine. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna repeat it on the other side. So let me just try to copy this cabinet door after right clicking on it, and I'm gonna copy this one with the mates, and let's go next. Concentric, I had picked the top one, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pick the top one there, and for the coincident I'm gonna select this so it is adding it properly. And then the next one I'm gonna go move downwards, and I believe I had done it with the bottom one. There we go. Click OK, and now let's look at the assembly. The door is there, so it's functioning fine. And now this, for the purpose of this lab, this is all what is expected to be completed. But one thing I want to show you, another thing is that we need to still add a couple of fastener pens. I have removed one of them from there while I moved from there. So I'm going to basically now add the missing fastener pens. So I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to copy with mates. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to select this face, this one, click OK. I'm going to select this face. I'm going to select this face, click OK. I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to select this face, click OK. And I'm going to move to the bottom edge, and I'm going to select this face, click OK. And while in the dialog, I'm going to keep it active, and I'm going to click on the surfaces. And now I'm going to add it on the other side. And I'm going to select for the concentric this one, for coincident this one, and click OK. and I'm gonna add concentric there, coincident there, click OK. I'm gonna add, select this, click OK, and then the last one is this and this. And now is the assembly complete. Before I close, I stop this video, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you, if you don't want to have this um, um, door going through the um, the shell, you can add an angular mate, which is an advanced mate, which I'm gonna do it right now. And I'm gonna click on this mate. I will just show it to you, and then you can play around with it. I'm gonna clear selection. I'm gonna click on this advanced mate, and I'm gonna click on this angle. So the angle, this angle is the starting angle. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna select this face. So the angle is 30. That's where you can start. That will be the starting angle, for example. And the minimum angle I could specify 30. The maximum scan angle, okay, let me just start with the 0 there. Okay, 0, it's gonna go at 90, and then what I'm gonna do is max, I'm gonna put 180 and see what happens, and I'm gonna click OK. So now I can rotate it, and that's the max it goes. So basically this is where the angular mate, that's what it does. So please play around with it and see how you can control the full movement. I have added this mate on this side I haven't, so this side I'm going through. So you can add those mates as well. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope this was helpful.